Hey guys, it's your course director, Emily, right here. I'm super excited to take a look at your developing portfolio sites and give you some positive, productive feedback on where to take it to from here. Please just remember that your portfolio is always going to be a work in progress. And as you continue to do cooler work and refine your skills, that your portfolio should be updated to reflect where you are. So first up, we're going to take a look at Brittney's site. So immediately from this tagline, words mean things, I can assess that she's a writer. It also confirms that for me here and here. So I like that you make it really clear for me from the beginning, kind of the focus of this site. It's clean, it's simple. You've got the about, writer, and contact. So I'm just going to scroll down. We see a simple sort of introduction and bio from you, and then ways that we can connect with you and other social media platforms, which is great. I can see in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen that these are, in fact, linking to other URLs. What I'm going to do is click on one of them here, just to make sure that they are, in fact, opening in a new browser window, which is definitely what you want because you don't want to send people away from your site. We also have the ability to download your resume here, and I can see that it comes as a PDF, which is absolutely the right kind of document type that you want for folks to download. So nice job with that. I see kind of a lot of empty space here. I might recommend making this bigger, right? And kind of filling a little bit more of this space, just to kind of add some bold or some emphasis in this area here. I'm going to go to the About Me. So it seems like this homepage is the About Me, which is totally fine. I see a lot of students struggle with what to put on the homepage. On a site that is your portfolio site, it certainly stands to reason that biographical information could be there on the homepage. Under writer, it seems like we have a few different kind of categories. I'm going to go ahead and select music. One thing I noticed when I did select that, though, is that the word music disappears kind of as a hover effect. So you want to make sure that you kind of go in and toggle that setting to make sure that even when I click on that, so maybe it's the active link, that I can still see the words there. So you can see that it disappears. You want to just toggle that setting. So under music, I see just kind of one featured article here, and then click here for more. And when I click on that, it opens up an entirely separate tab, and that it looks like maybe that this is just a blog itself that's loading in. Going to give this a second. Okay, so there we go. So we've got this blog post. And then several others here that really talk more about your writing. So I'm not quite sure about that navigational choice to send me away from your site. Curious as to why this blog is not housed in this site itself, right? So let's go then to world news. When I click on that, I kind of see one sort of featured article, and then I click it to add, get more. And what I'm seeing here is it's taking me to this other blog. My question to you is, why not develop this site more, add your biographical information here and your contact here, instead of creating something else and having to continually link people back here to the majority of your content, right? So again, the recommendation is to build this out more and to brand it more and to add that biographical sort of about page and some contact, so you don't have to kind of keep sending people back and forth and opening up new browser windows. So last but not least, let's jump to the contact page, and it's just a simple form where we can get in touch and then kind of showcases where you are. I don't see any reason why you can't consolidate these two sites here, so that you're only having to maintain one platform and that you get more of a cohesive, consolidated presence. Overall, though, it's very clean, and just kind of that simple sort of shift in the way you approach this is going to be really powerful. Next up, we've got the portfolio of John Smith. I've seen this a number of times. It's very clean and well organized, and it's also consistent with his resume. As I hover over this, I can see that it's going to link me to this page here where I get his professional background info about his skills and education, which is great. It's laid out in such a way that it's easily scannable and that it can also be read by search engines or screen readers. A lot of times I see with people posting their resume information that they'll just do a screenshot of their print resume, and that's ineffective in that it becomes a picture of words and not words themselves. So I'm happy to see the way you've approached this, John. One thing back here on the home page, the way that this web address kind of extends all the way out here really bumps up at the at the edge of that container. We're on your website, so I don't know that we necessarily need you to promote it here. especially because it's such a hodgepodge URL. Like if you were to get a custom domain name, like this is johnsmithmediacommunications.com, perhaps promoting that makes a little sense. But in this case, it seems somewhat redundant, and then also stylistically, it really forces you to, crowd this space here. I'm going to jump here over to your projects. Now, I've reviewed this site already once this month, and I'm very pleased to see that you incorporated a few thoughts. We get sort of this little description of what you've done, and then the ability to check out your full site. So I definitely can appreciate that you've included both the title and the description on these, so we can get a more full picture of the scope of your work and how you approach what is your unique approach. And I like that you give us these links to where we can go check out these full videos. Because certainly just providing this here without the audio isn't going to give us the full picture of what you created. And then last but not least, I'm going to jump over to contact here, and just you've got a few details, and then basically your contact form. One thing I would encourage you to think about, John, is you don't really talk about like offering any sort of particular services or kind of identifying the areas that you want to contribute. You do say you could hire me for all of these things, but like it's somewhat vague in that I don't really have an idea as to sort of like what lights you up or what your focus is. So, kind of thinking about where to from here. Stylistically, it's clean, your content makes sense, but how can you maybe showcase a little bit more of the projects that you'd like to kind of, be a part of in the future? Might be something for you to think about. Last but not least, we have the site here of Summer. I appreciate this flamingo design being a Floridian. It looks great with this color scheme. Definitely reminiscent of, kind of an early 90s vibe for sure, kind of a retro vibe at this point. So one thing I'll say is I really like it in its big form up here, but it seems super squished up here in this navigation area. At this point, I might just concentrate on Summer Swenson up here, and then, kind of keep the full version of it displayed in this large banner image area. Scrolling, we see that you do creative work and that you focus on story. I love sort of the continuation of this flamingo theme. So when I'm on the home page and I'm going here, I see a little bit about who you are and then some of your experience, which is nice. This is kind of hard to read in this sort of outlined way over this busy background. My recommendation would be for this just to be a solid button with a solid hover effect. Scrolling down, so let me just kind of poke through this way. If I go about, it's this section, and then I can get to the resume here, which is going to take me to another page. But this is in fact designed in such a way that screen readers or search engines can index this information, which is great. It's well laid out, and it's very full of detail, which creates keyword-rich content. And then if we go to the blog, let's see what happens. So here we have basically kind of a collection of what looks like your school-related projects. I might identify this as student work if this is in fact student work. It looks like potentially it could be, just kind of knowing the MCBS curriculum. And if this is something that you will continue to populate when you graduate, it makes sense to keep this here, or it makes sense to keep this here if you want to show your progression through your education. But just something I want you to kind of be thoughtful about. Just because you have this content doesn't necessarily mean that it makes sense for your goals long term. Like I said, portfolios are a constant work in progress, so kind of reassessing what works for you, when, where, and why will always be an important thing. I'm going to go back to the home page here and see what happens when I click portfolio. Okay, it takes me down to this section. Love the details, love the the colors coming in. And that's kind of interesting that when I hover over it, it disappears. I would not recommend that functionality, just in case. I'd like to be reminded that if I click on this, I'll be going to websites. And sort of the different sizing of the text within these gives it a little bit more of a haphazard look, especially, for this one that has a lot of words in it. that's really sort of pushing up against the limitations of the container that it's in. So I might want to see a little bit more consistency in the sizing and the placing of these, and then not to have the title disappear. I'm going to go ahead and select, I think that was photography. But it takes me to a totally different page, and all of this is very, very beautiful work, and I had no idea that you had this entirely separate, a line of portfolio content. It's very strong and very beautiful. My question to you is why are these two things separate, and do they need to be separate? I mean, would you get more, would it be easier for you to only maintain one sort of web presence? There's no really right answer to that, only what's right for you. So, definitely be thinking about that. If I jump here to graphic design, it looks like I see an example of the Real Deal Tacos menu, but I don't really see any context to understand what I'm looking at. So, maybe a title and a description of what you did. And then if I go to custom social media, so it looks like you've created kind of these different social posts, which are great, but for who and for why and for what point, and how effective were they? These are things that you definitely could capitalize on and really highlight another side of your skill set, which is your ability to articulate and explain your work. Scrolling down again, loving the flamingo vibes, and we've got the contact information here. So it seems like I totally skipped over services and pricing. Yeah, so like that's kind of not as intuitive as I thought it might be, because it seemed like we were going down the line on a single scroll page, but then this, and that we skipped over this page, and then this took me somewhere else completely. So I would revisit the functionality of that, as it's not super intuitive the way that it progresses. So here it's cool to see that you have the ability to book, to book these projects with you. And if I'm going to go ahead and hit book it, it's going to take me to when we can do that, and then to schedule all that. This sort of chartreuse color is cool, but it seems like maybe it's a little bit off brand because you have such, sort of softer colors elsewhere. I mean, the chartreuse feels very Floridian as well. So just curious if that was purposeful or not, because the chartreuse seems a little more electric, and might be kind of a little bit less consistent with the vibe that's going on here. I like to see that these are all your services and that you thought about, what you're going to charge for that. I think that that's fantastic. And your ability to, again, explain your service offerings, let people know sort of the full scope of what you have to offer. Overall, you guys, these portfolios are really strong. I've given you a few ideas from where to take where to take them to from here. If you guys have any questions about this feedback, please let me know. Happy to continue to support you through this process.